A young woman with no criminal history, no violent background, and no signs of being dangerous ended up committing one of the most brutal murders Illinois had ever seen. Her name was Watasha Denton-McCaster. She was just 24 years old, a college student, a regular churchgoer, someone who blended into everyday life without a single red flag. But behind closed doors, she committed an unthinkable act. She murdered her husband, cut off his head, hands, and legs, and dumped his dismembered torso in a field. She didn't run. She didn't show fear. She simply went on with her life as if nothing had happened. Today, she is serving 78 years in prison. But that leaves one chilling question hovering over this entire case. What made a quiet, educated young woman transform into someone capable of such calculated brutality? No one has the full answer. But the story of how investigators uncovered the truth is one of the most chilling murder cases ever known. Let's dive into Chapter 16 of the Grim Chapters. On October 29, 2012, during deer season in Springfield, Illinois, a man was driving home after hunting. As he passed a creek along a quiet rural road, he spotted something lying in the tall grass. It was large and oddly shaped. His first thought was that a deer had been hit by a car and left there. That wasn't unusual for the area, so he kept driving. But as he neared his home, something kept nagging at him. The shape didn't look right. Something about it bothered him. Unable to shake the unease, he called a friend and asked if they could go back with him to take another look. When the two returned later that evening with flashlights, they approached the object slowly. As the beam of light hit it, they froze. It wasn't a deer. It was a human torso. No head, no arms, no legs. Just a torso, severed cleanly and dumped in the woods. The men immediately called 911, shaken to their core. When investigators arrived, even the most seasoned officers were disturbed by what they found. They had handled homicides before, but nothing like this. There were no identifying features on the torso. With the head and hands missing, they had no way to tell who the victim was. No clothes, no wallet, nothing that could give this person a name. At first, detectives scoured recent missing person reports, but no one matched the description. For now, the victim had no identity. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere. And that meant the mystery was only beginning. As investigators searched the area around the body, they noticed blood spatter on a nearby guardrail. Scattered on the ground were balled-up napkins soaked in blood, and among them, a small slip of paper, a receipt. That piece of paper would become the first major breakthrough in the case. It was from Walmart, and the items listed on it immediately stood out. A saw, masks, gloves, plastic sheeting, cleaning supplies, and blankets. It didn't look like someone preparing for home improvement. It looked like someone preparing for something far darker. Police traced the purchase to a credit card. The card belonged to Watasha Denton-McCaster, a 24-year-old college student. This young woman with no criminal record suddenly became the first and only person connected to evidence found near a dismembered human body. Detectives moved quickly. They placed her under 24-hour surveillance to watch her movements and see whether she slipped up. It didn't take long. Investigators watched as Watasha took her household trash outside to the curb. The moment it hit public property, officers swooped in and collected it. Inside the bags, they found pieces of floor tile, freshly torn up from the home she shared with her husband, Norman. At first, detectives wondered whether she was remodeling. It wasn't enough to prove anything. The tiles were sent to the crime lab just in case. But the next bag told a different story. This one wasn't filled with typical household trash. It contained men's clothing, military uniforms, personal items belonging to a man who seemed to have vanished into thin air. And then detectives found something that stopped them cold: an identification card. It belonged to 22-year-old National Guard member Norman McCaster, Watasha's husband, and Norman was nowhere in sight. Suddenly, this wasn't just a receipt from Walmart. This wasn't just a suspicious purchase. This was a missing man, whose clothes were found in trash bags amid a home where floor tiles had been ripped up, and a dismembered body that still had no name. Detectives immediately contacted the Illinois National Guard. The moment they mentioned Norman's name, the guard told them he had missed a mandatory weekend drill. That was highly unusual. Norman was known for being responsible, dependable, and committed. Missing a drill was something he simply wouldn't do. Detectives went to Watasha's home to speak with her directly. She greeted them politely, smiling, and even offered them drinks. She showed no fear or concern. Sitting calmly on her couch, she explained that Norman had left unexpectedly with some people from St. Louis after an argument. She claimed he had a drug problem and walked out on their marriage. But detectives noticed inconsistencies. Her story didn't make sense. She couldn't explain what car he left in, where he went, or why she hadn't reported him missing. So they contacted Norman's father, Marcel. His reaction was immediate. Shock, confusion, anger. He insisted his son was not on drugs. He hadn't heard from Norman and didn't even know he was missing. Norman always called. He would never simply vanish. That was the moment investigators knew something was very wrong. Detectives interviewed Norman's co-workers, fellow service members, and friends. They all described him the same way: reliable, hardworking, and well-liked. Not a single person believed he was doing drugs or had run off with strangers from St. Louis. Meanwhile, surveillance footage from Walmart showed something even more troubling. One day after purchasing the saw and cleaning supplies, Watasha returned to buy heavy-duty plastic sheeting, the kind used to prevent blood from spreading or to wrap large objects. The timing was suspicious. The items were suspicious. And the lack of concern over her missing husband was suspicious. Detectives needed proof. They requested Norman's DNA from his military file at Dover Air Force Base and compared it to samples taken from the torso found in the woods. When the results came back, the truth was undeniable. The torso belonged to denton-mccaster. He had been brutally murdered, dismembered, and dumped, and detectives were now convinced that his own wife was responsible. When investigators told Norman's father what they had found, he broke down. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He had hoped his son was simply missing, maybe even hiding out somewhere. But the truth hit him like a punch to the chest. His son had been murdered, his body mutilated, his remains discarded like they meant nothing. Later, he said the anger he felt was overwhelming. "I wanted to hurt someone," he admitted. "Whoever did this." But the truth was going to get even darker. Norman and Watasha had been high school sweethearts. They had married young. From the outside, they seemed like a normal, happy couple. But detectives soon uncovered a much different reality. Their second wedding anniversary had just passed. Their marriage had been strained. And there was a detail inside Watasha's home that chilled investigators: her kitchen calendar. The date of their anniversary was completely blacked out with a marker. It didn't look like a celebration. It looked like a countdown. When detectives confronted her with inconsistencies in her story, her calm demeanor slipped. She backtracked. She contradicted herself. She claimed Norman left with only the clothes on his back, then later insisted he took everything. Nothing she said made sense anymore. Detectives handed her 2 warrants, one allowing them to search her home again, and one requiring her to provide a DNA sample. Her face changed instantly. She knew she was trapped. Moments later, she was arrested. During the investigation, detectives uncovered disturbing clues that revealed the murder had been planned for months. Searches on her computer dated back to June. How to kill a spouse and get away with it. How to kill your husband. How to hide a body. These weren't random curiosities. They were step-by-step preparation. A college student testified that she had borrowed his gun and returned it missing 2 bullets. Prosecutors believed Norman had been shot in the head, and that removing his head was an attempt to hide ballistic evidence. A toxicology report revealed high levels of tetrahydrozoline, the active ingredient in Vicine eye drops, in Norman's system. Ingested in large quantities, it can slow the heart rate, drop body temperature, and even cause death. Someone had poisoned him. Surveillance videos showed her making multiple trips to stores, buying plastic sheets, cleaning products, and eventually a dolly, presumably to move his body. She even placed an order for a chest freezer, which she canceled later. Detectives believed she originally intended to store Norman's body, but ultimately changed her plan. The evidence painted a chilling portrait. This was not a spontaneous murder. It was methodically planned, carefully carried out, and extensively covered up. Detectives traced Watasha's phone and discovered she traveled toward Chicago after the murder. She stopped at various bridges, wooded areas, and remote spots long enough to dispose of body parts. Authorities believe she discarded Norman's head, hands, and legs in multiple locations. They were never recovered. For his grieving family, this meant they could never bury Norman whole. They could never fully lay him to rest. His father later said, "Every morning I sit in the car and cry. That's how much I miss him. The pain was immense. The loss was immeasurable." At trial, prosecutors revealed the full extent of Watasha's planning. The laptop searches, the borrowed gun, the missing bullets, the Vicine poisoning, the purchases at Walmart, and the ripped-up floor tiles in her home all pointed to one conclusion. Norman's murder was premeditated. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Watasha showed no emotion. She denied killing Norman. She told detectives she still loved him. She continued to wear her wedding ring. But the jury didn't believe her. In February 2014, they found her guilty on all charges. She was sentenced to 78 years in prison, 55 years for murder, 20 for dismemberment, and 3 for concealing a homicidal death. The court made sure the sentences ran consecutively, meaning she would likely die behind bars. Even then, she claimed the sentence was unfair. She appealed in 2017, arguing it was excessive for someone her age with no prior criminal record. But the appellate court upheld the verdict, stating the brutality of the crime justified the punishment. Her fate was sealed. Today, Watasha Denton-McCaster remains in prison. She has never admitted to the murder. She has never explained why she did it. She has never shown remorse. What looked like a normal young marriage was actually filled with secrets, resentment, and a dark plan quietly forming in the shadows. The most heartbreaking truth is this: the person Norman trusted most was the one who ended his life. His father still cries every morning in his car. His family still has no headstone with his whole body beneath it. And the rest of Norman's remains will likely never be found. A peaceful young man with a promising future had his life ripped away by someone he loved. All because behind the face of a quiet young woman was a darkness no one ever expected. Thank you for watching this chapter to the end. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this chapter, please like and share it with others. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe for upcoming chapters. Your support is greatly appreciated. Stay safe, and we will see you in the next chapter.